DirtTrax is sponsored by Can-Am, the ride says it all. Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Hatfield-McCoy Trails, where hundreds of miles of off-road adventure await you today. Yamaha ATVs and side-by-side vehicles, real-world tough. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
Last week on DirtTrax, we started our adventure in beautiful British Columbia. We toured Kelowna's famous West Side Road on Can-Am Spyders, viewing some of the most beautiful scenery in all of Canada. Our adventure landed us in the hills of Sycamus, where we geared up the all-new Outlander L Series ATVs and put them to the test. Now, the continuation of our CKMP mountain adventure.
So from our campfire, we maybe had about a couple hundred feet that we had to climb in order to get to the very top of Quest Mountain.
We knew that up on the mountain there were some tighter trails that we wouldn't be able to get to and access as easily with the Maverick. So we thought, well, let's make day one strictly Outlanders. That'll be kind of cool. We'll see what they can do. We'll take them to some, some alpine heights and really give them a good ringing out. I even at one point stopped on the side of the mountain, and I just looked at this big hill and thought, you know what? Let's see if we can climb that. And I was able to climb some hills that I just didn't think were possible, and I was expecting to have to get onto the 500 V twin, but that little 450 is a stout motor. It's got all you need.
Really didn't disappoint in terms of the fun that we had. I mean, it's a pretty cool chassis, and that's ultimately what we wanted to set out to do with this, is we wanted to sort of take it to an extreme element and see, would the Outlander L sort of satisfy us? Once you got up top of Quest Mountain, it was pretty cool. It was exactly as Carl had described. I mean, it was essentially a 360-degree view of the area. You could see the series of lakes, which consisted of a huge chain called Shuswap Lake. As you looked more towards the north, you could see Eagles Pass, which is where the guys had done their mountain riding experience with Carl in the wintertime.
We could see Mount Revelstoke off in the distance. We could see the mountain ranges that we ride in the wintertime.
It just comes down to this. It's some of the most spectacular views that you can experience in the BC area.
After the views at the top of Mount Quest, we needed to head down because we had burned up daylight, we had burned up the hours of the day, and you don't want to be on top of a mountain at nighttime. It's just not something you want to do when you got a nice, cozy, warm bed waiting for you down at the bottom of the mountain. We packed up and headed down, and we picked up the pace. It was fun. We got to sort of chase each other a little bit, pick up the speed, hit a couple of little jumps and a couple of little washout sections, and really amp it up speed-wise.
It added to the story just a little bit more and added to the experience a little bit more, is that, you really had to push this machine to the limits in order to experience that level of fun. And at the end of the day, even though we knew that the vehicle is maybe slightly underpowered for what we're used to, it really didn't disappoint in terms of the fun that we had.
At the end of the day, let loose, blow off some steam, get back down to a reasonable altitude where the temperature is normal, and that's precisely what we did. Have you been passenger when we've been tearing it up yet?
No, I've tried to stay away from being a passenger with you guys.
Okay, good.
So
cool.
I think it's going to be a different experience today. Thanks very much.
So for day two, we had it planned that we were going to take out the side-by-sides. Day one was sights, scenery, and just enjoying kind of the slower pace of off-road adventure. Day two was the complete opposite of that. The only thing I wanted to see was a blur of trees going past me and the dust storm I was kicking up behind.
When you got three guys of our nature and we're out there with ATVs and side-by-sides, it always comes down to how far can you push these vehicles to the limit and see what you can do with them. We're pretty much ripping up the fire roads as fast as you possibly can. And I mean, what's great about the Mavericks is they got the horsepower, they've got the handling. And between the RS and the XC, which pretty much is just a difference in suspension width, I mean, they're pretty equally matched.
I haven't really spent that much time in side-by-side before the last couple days. You know, when you turn them up and let them fly in the sport mode, they're pretty fun. I gotta admit, coming from motorcycle background, riding in those, that's more what I like. You know, there's speed and there's power and good suspension.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Brimstone, where the journey is your reward.
I mean, the pace that day did not slow at all. I just remember twigs and rocks and dust and power slides, man. And that is a good day on all accounts.
Even though Carl was eating a lot of dust, he was right on our tail chasing us and motivating us just to go a little bit faster and faster. We only had the 2 Mavericks, which at first I thought I was going to be a little disappointed, but the one thing is when you ride with AJ, you're guaranteed to have an experience of a lifetime. And when you're sort of like a co-pilot or a passenger, you sort of, before you even buckle that seatbelt in, if you don't have the confidence to get into that ride, then you might as well check yourself at the door.
Everybody stayed out of the ditch. Carl chased us into the trees a couple of times and maybe had a little commitment with our line that I shouldn't have had it a few times, but at the end of the day, we all walked away safe, happy, and just giggling like schoolgirls. At the end of the Maverick ride day, we were done early, and Carl said he had something else planned for us. We weren't 100% sure what it was. When we got back down to the bottom of the mountain, we were all wicked dusty, wicked dry, and needed to get washed off. Little did we know, the Moomba Mondo was going to be our source of water and washing.
I wakeboarded once 15 years ago, and that was basically my experience in terms of like wakeboard boats.
I've wake skated, I've wakeboarded, I've water skied, I've tubed and kneeboarded and done pretty much everything you can do behind a boat, but I've never wake surfed because you need to have a serious wall of water. He jumps out behind the boat and it's like, you know, like pro right away, you know, he's surfing the wake and he can toss the rope away and ride it without having any kind of a pull off the rope.
Yeah, AJ's been jonesing over here. He's been like tapping me. I want to go. I want to go. I think he's going to do a lot better than me. I'm just going to put it out there because I don't want to have any false expectations.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't long. AJ was in the water and got up into the wake. He was surfing it pretty good as well.
Very different than wakeboarding, similar to wake skating, but you're much closer to the boat. And you're riding that wall of water just like I imagine you would be riding a curl of surf if you're out surfing.
Cool. I think this one right here I'm going to post. This one you're really...
Right when your nose dies.
Yeah, you're really ripping it.
Are you getting a funny one of them?
No, it was a really good one. Go! Okay. Took a couple tries and all that stuff, but listen, there was no way I was not going to get up. I held it pretty long. I mean, just as long as the other dudes and all that stuff. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's something that I didn't expect to do on this trip. It was a really fun-filled week of amazing things to experience.
It had been a great trip. I had a really good time. Carl's a great guy, a great host, and showed us the best of BC. I think we're gonna have to keep this adventure stuff going on with him and I, because we seem to get into some pretty interesting situations, do some pretty cool stuff. This is what I love about this job. At the end of a trip, you walk away and you look at it and you go, that wasn't work, that was fun.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Super ATV, the industry leader in aftermarket parts and accessories for the off-road market.
Being a female in a male-dominated industry, I often find myself facing typical female stereotypes. By this, I mean I'm expected to drive slower, proceed with caution, and let the men handle all the heavy work. So I need a machine that can show who I am and what I can truly bring to the table. And let me tell you boys, it ain't a plate of sandwiches. I may be a girl, but that doesn't mean I like to ride at the back of the pack. So let's see if the RZR 800 XC is as capable as I am when it counts most. From day one, the RZR has been making heroes out of everyday people. Side-by-side riders had no idea what was actually possible with a factory-built unit until Polaris made it a high-performance motor with a sport-focused chassis and let it loose on the general public. Over the years, the RZR has undergone countless upgrades. From the 50-inch 800 to the 60-inch S model, the 900 XP, and finally, the 107 horsepower 1000 and 4-seat versions of each, there really is a RZR for everyone. Trust me when I say, being different isn't always a bad thing. The biggest differences between it and other RZR 800 models are all the bolt-on upgrades. Which means, in reality, the XC is just a package, not a different vehicle. High offset aluminum wheels, Maxxis Bighorn tires, PRP seats, and Walker Evans shocks are things you won't find on any other stock RZR, but are things you'd probably want to add anyways. Another feature that helps set the XC model apart from other RZR models is that it includes power steering as a standard option. Now, when power steering first came out, I just thought it was another gimmick. But after spending time on numerous vehicles with it, I'm sold. It's awesome. The RZR XC chassis is exactly the same as any other 50-inch RZR model. Despite it being listed as 55 inches wide, the truth is, the extra width comes from the wider offset wheels, not a physical change to the chassis or suspension. Suspension travel is still a decent 9 inches up front and an adequate 9.5 inches out back. But the aluminum-bodied Walker Evans shocks have compression clickers and piggyback reservoirs, so you can easily tune that 9 inches to suit your riding style. Most people think that girls can't handle big power. Well, I definitely disagree. In fact, I believe that women are more capable of handling big power because we're more responsible and we aren't motivated by our egos. Well, for the most part. The 760cc parallel twin found in the XC really is the motor that introduced us all to the big bore side-by-side. And while it still produces good power, the competition has caught up. 55 horsepower just isn't enough these days. As a smaller person, I often find myself feeling lost in bigger side-by-sides. I know this is opposite of most of my male coworkers who are always looking for the biggest driver compartment. I, on the other hand, fit great in smaller ones, like the RZR. The XC features PRP bucket seats with aggressive side bolstering. The seats themselves take up more space in the cockpit and push the driver closer to the steering wheel. For bigger drivers, this is a problem, but for me, it's perfect. I find the ergonomics of the XC to be more than comfortable. So now we know what the XC is made of and what sets it apart from a typical 50-inch RZR 800. But none of this information is any good if it doesn't help explain what this thing is actually like on the trails. Power delivery is buttery smooth, and although 55 horsepower is nothing to be ashamed of, it was definitely harder to keep up with the competition when speeds increased. And no, it's not because I'm a girl. After getting the Walker Evans shocks dialed in just right for me, the small stuff disappeared, and I felt completely isolated from big hits. Handling was excellent. The power steering kept it light and protected me from harsh feedback from the wheels through the steering wheel. The big horns hooked up in every condition I encountered, and it may seem like a small thing, but the super tight turning radius made maneuvering tighter trails easy. Okay, I know in the beginning I said that despite being a girl, I can keep up with and ride just as hard as any guy, and this is still true. But at the end of the day, I'm still a girl, which means I travel with a lot of stuff, which means I need a lot of places to put all of this stuff. And there is just not enough storage in the RZR for all my necessary items. So, is the RZR XC capable enough to keep you or me at the front of the pack? Can it hold its own against the newest crop of trail-focused sport side-by-sides? Yes, but just barely. The RZR 800 is starting to show its age, and its competition has made huge improvements. But it's no secret, for 2015, Polaris has too.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Triton Trailers. Know it, own it, haul it, and by Seismic UTV Accessories. Get more done. Have more fun.
If you've been watching this season, there's no doubt that you've tuned in for the Scrambler 1000 versus the Renegade 1000 comparison. It's been one of the gnarliest shootouts that we have ever done. This category of true sport utility is the pinnacle of technology and horsepower in the four-wheel drive category, and right now is home to only two true players, the Renegade and the Scrambler variations. While I know there's no true competition in this ultra high-end category, after a quick talk with the folks from Yamaha, they suggested that we build one. And so that's precisely what I'm going to set out to do with a 2014 Yamaha 700 Grizzly. While I will be at a horsepower disadvantage, I know that up front. My goal isn't a bored-out Grizzly, but a lighter, more agile, and sportier Grizzly that can slay the trails just as hard as the Rennie and the Scrambler. And ditching much of the factory front fascia, as well as the factory racks, is going to shed some pounds, increasing power to weight, as well as handling. Right away, we've changed the look of the Grizzly, and while we've lightened the front end, we are still going to need a bumper, and I'm thinking something more sporty. This YFZ 450 aluminum bumper weighs very little, but adds a whole lot of aggressive styling, as well as functionality for keeping the front end safe. While this is not a bolt-on accessory, it does what we want and changes the look and function of the front end of the Grizzly. While I'm adding the front bumper, I wanted to take the time to account for the extra abuse that a vehicle like this is going to take at higher speeds out on the trail, and GYTR skid plates are just the answer. Direct bolt-ons from Yamaha's GYTR department have us covered. Both front and rear bash plates, as well as an engine plate, and front and rear A-arm guards add a whole lot of insurance with a minimal penalty in the weight department, thanks to the lightweight aluminum design. While we're working on the lower side of the vehicle, we should probably address the suspension, because while the stock shocks are pretty decent for the average trail rider, that's just not me. Elka is a Canadian manufacturer of high-end shocks, and has been around the off-road world for a very long time. These piggyback Stage 5s are custom valved for our application, and feature two-stage threaded preload springs, high and low speed compression dampening with easy adjust thumb clickers, as well as a flat blade adjustable rebound dampening dial. These shocks are premium in every aspect. I've already taken the stock tires off, and truth be told, I do not want to put them back on. Instead, I got a brand new set of rims and rubber that really fit this build properly. ITP was able to supply our build with these SD Series beadlock 12-inch rims. It's not just a great looking rim, it's SD because it's severe duty and comes with a full 2-year structural warranty against bending or breakage. Wrapping the SDs are the 25-inch Terracross tires, offering significantly beefed up sidewall ply and tread thickness, while also utilizing an extra tough rubber compound to increase tread life, and finished up with a wide footprint to help transfer all the power from our 700 Grizz to the ground. And speaking of power, the 700 has always been known for its low-end torque, but it's up top where it could use a little longer legs, and I have the perfect combo to make just that happen. Removing the stock exhaust and replacing it with an MBRP canister is not only going to allow the 4-stroke to breathe, it's shedding significant weight. While the can on its own will help, linking it with the Two Brothers Juicebox Pro, we can now custom tune our mapping with an incredible range of precision. And the Juicebox comes with a pre-programmed map for an aftermarket can, so it's as simple as plugging it in and setting the map dial. With an increase in power, the next step is to make the Grizzly fit me better, and by that I mean changing the position of the control surfaces. The stock handlebars aren't sporty and don't fit properly for high-paced stand-up riding, and that's where Rock's Speed Effects comes in. With their 5-inch combo kit for the 550 or 700 Grizz, you can totally change the way your Grizzly feels. A 5-inch pivoting riser accepts the Fly Aero Taper fat bars that raise 1.25 inches taller, has a 9-degree tighter sweep, and are 3 inches wider. Finished up with the Rock's dash panel that covers the stock mount and the Rock's bar pad, and you have transformed the control surface. While I am feeling really close to completion, I know that there are still a few more bits and pieces that I'd really like to add to not only increase functionality, but also help keep the Grizz sporty. The GYTR oversized foot pegs are an easy install and help to keep your feet locked down when riding aggressively. They're 10 millimeters taller and 40 millimeters longer than stock. Finishing our build off for this week are the Rock's Speed Effects handguards that'll fit any way you want to mount them and finish this build off quite nicely. With the Grizzly looking much more the part of a sport four-wheel drive ATV, tune in next week where I'm going to add just a couple more parts and do a little bit of custom work before I take this vehicle to the trails and see what we've really done.
DirtTrax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Can-Am, the ride says it all. MBRP Performance Exhaust, making power with MBRP. Arctic Cat, share our passion. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
If you enjoyed this video, post a comment and let us know what you think. Then, click this link to subscribe and that link for more great videos from DirtTrax TV.